One thing, Peter, when I had talked about the advisory board, I mentioned that I currently have a mayor's advisory board, and I use the example of a veterans advisory board, and they provide information to me. And so I don't know if either you misunderstood that, or I don't know what you'd heard, but I wasn't trying to turn a particular board in. They have separate duties, but nonetheless. Let me start with Mayor Pro Tem, see if she has any questions, and if not, then I'll go down to Councilor Flores. Do you have any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the group that came forward and presented. I'm wondering if we have other organizations present, like the ACLU, the union, to speak to that, or maybe my question is more around maybe to Mr. Peely and the negotiations that do occur with our union. EFO, is there something that you can help kind of clarify for us as it relates to something like this and the union?
Mayor, Councilman Pro Tem, I have not spoken to the union, so I hate to speak for them, but just on the surface, we internally in staff, we recognize that this could be a concern. Just the way we read it, the way we interpret it, but I haven't broached the subject with the union yet. So I don't know if I have any information coming from them, but again, just from my staff internally, we look at this as something that does cause concern. We can anticipate concern coming from them, but I hate to speak in their, in their behalf or for any representation from them.
No, I didn't want you to speak on behalf of the union. I just wanted to see if someone on staff, and I would assume there's a union representative in the audience, and if there's not, I'm not sure if Chief Dominguez has had that opportunity to have the conversation. And then secondly, when is our union up for our union contract up for negotiation?
Mayor Pro Tem, EFO here. So we just concluded not too long ago the negotiations for the union contract. So it's not up for a couple of years, but I don't believe there are any representatives from the union in the audience. But again, our thought was to hear the presentation. If this was something that the council was considering, that would be the first place we would go, is talk to the union about what concerns they would have, if any.
Thank you, EFO. Thank you. And then I understand that is there a presentation by the ACLU, or will they be Mayor speaking at public comment?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was not aware of any other presentations. I did see a gentleman raise his hand. He most likely will be part of when I allow the public to have some comment. But I can tell you, based on the amount of time that we're probably going to give to the residents is going to be a small amount of time each, because we have 2 other items on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Those are all the questions that I have thus far.
Okay. Councilor Flores, you had your hand light up?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Green and Dr. Neeson and Dr. Goodman. I know, JDs you don't like to be called doctors, but thank you all for your very hard work, presentation of your very hard work. In looking at the 5 cities that you selected, the demographics were quite different. And the only one that maybe comes close, amazingly enough, is Davis, California, which is a university town. And has Dr. Martin Luther King Law School there too as well. But and in that town, the NAACP, the Mexican American group, and another group were really behind this. So I'm happy to see this. However, all of the municipalities that you presented to us seem to be, the inception of the oversight boards have been pretty recent. So there's really no data, at least not in the reports that you presented, that have any kind of outcomes. In terms of, has crime gone down? Has there been less brutality? Has there been less, this, that, and the other? Notwithstanding, I think that what you've done is a phenomenal job. It's very well done. I know that our political analyst, Sergio Ruiz, prepared some data, and he actually included Beaumont, Texas, which is, I think, northeast of Houston but at any rate, that one too doesn't really have a demographic breakdown. But I think that would be helpful in terms of having, if it's at all possible, in terms of having apples to apples type of thing. And then also the population and the ratio of police officers is different than what we have as well. There was one city that had a population that was close to us, and that would be Boulder, Colorado. And I really don't know about the demographics there either. But I really like the fact that all of you emphasize the fact that this would not in any way wouldn't keep the oversight committees from functioning, and that we would have transparency, which has been lacking. And I agree with you, Mr. Goodman, that we have settled too many cases. I've always said, fight them. But for whatever reasons, they have settled. So in terms of and also in terms of akin to the demographics, is there any data as to which neighborhoods are affected? And and how these changes would affect outcomes. And then if a police officer, some of these included having a police officer appear before the oversight board, would they have counsel, legal counsel, not one of us there, but legal counsel present?
They would have, if they wanted a union representative, I would imagine that if they wanted, they would, I mean, I'm not on the board, that would be for the board to decide, but if I were on the board, I'd say yeah. Like the union rep, not interfering with it, but certainly observing and making a statement if he or she wanted to. But yeah, that certainly would be feasible. Let me just say that we had sent earlier information about some other cities. I think Dr. Nissen was concentrating on these 5 because of the city's connection with OIC. And
OIR.
OIR, sorry. OIR and the fact that OIR was functioning there in tandem with these councils. But we can certainly, if you're interested, we can provide probably some more information of the type you're looking for. Not immediately, but.
Yeah, thank you. And for the public who doesn't know who OIR is, we also employ them to a certain degree, not to the extent of the board, but and Michael Giannaco was previously with the Justice Department, and the department, he was in the Civil Rights Office. He was the head of the, no, he was not the head of the Civil Rights Office. He was the second in line to develop Patrick, who went on to become governor of Massachusetts. So, see, I do have another.
May I say one other thing about what you said while you're looking for that? I'm not necessarily blaming the law department or the lawyers or the outside lawyers for settling the cases. you know, some of those cases,
Yeah.
may have been hopeless.
Yeah.
So I'm not second guessing the lawyers.
Yeah. Well, you know how lawyers are. So I think that if there's any way of gathering information, not that it would in any way impede my support of having this oversight board established, but it'd be great to see if there's any data out there on how these changes and this oversight board has affected and what the outcomes have been. And that's, again, thank you very much, Dr. Green, Mr. Goodman, and Dr. Neeson, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bencomo, then Councilor Graham and Abeta.
No, Councilor Graham first.
Councilor Graham, okay.
Thank you. Thank you all. Councilor Flores really, at the end, raised the question I have in my primary question being, what is the empirical data available that demonstrate that these boards are effective for the problems that we're looking to solve? And let me just walk you through quickly. I read carefully the packet that was presented to us. Of the 5 cities, I went to their individual websites to get a look at how they were framing their boards. I went to the NACOL website to see how NACOL was framing their boards. I went to OIR to look at independent OIR reports for each of the cities and looked for meta-analyses of oversight boards generally and how they perform. And what I could find was nothing. There was no real hard data that showed that cities that implement these kind of boards show a decrease. I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm saying I was unable to find it. The closest that I was able to come was an independent OIR report for Anaheim, which it looks like they piloted their oversight board for 2016 and 2017, and then made it official in 2018. And there was no appreciable change in use of force reports pre or post the board. And that was the closest I could find to any kind of hard data. Do you have information on that? Can you give me any indication of how, going from the metrics that were mentioned the most during your presentation, which was loss of life and dollars spent, and realizing that there are other metrics possible, what can you offer right now, or can you give me direction for more research?
Well, the only thing I came up with in some of the conversations I had with different liaison people or the monitors, they did not share any empirical stuff. I would like to have gotten that myself. However, in Boulder, I think they have the most sophisticated system. And I'm sure that we could, as Peter and I talked to the co-chairs of that board, we could dig further and get more empirical data if they have it. I'm not sure either. I cannot 100% say that everyone is exhibiting some model of statistical analysis. I would think that some of the city councils in those 5 cities have probably asked for evaluations of the citizen review boards. And I don't know how much they would allow you to dig into the city council stuff, but I think that could be possible, and I could do that and get as much as I could. I mean, I'm curious too.
If I may, the findings are all over the lot because there have been a lot of these boards where opposition from the police required compromises that made a board that had no power that had no ability to get the documents and that kind of thing. I think your question is great. We'll try to go to some of the places that have had these boards longer and see what we can get. Certainly the Department of Justice keeps trying to impose them in situations that seem to require them. But we will work, you've given us some good homework.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Como?
Thanks, Mayor. I will keep my questions short. Just a couple of questions. Do you know if Seattle has a citizen oversight board?
I think so.
I don't have that listing I gave you from Nicole with me.
Okay, I couldn't find that they did. However, I did want to note that Seattle's consent decree was just terminated. It just ended. And several of the recommendations that the Department of Justice made and the notable progress they noted that had been made included reduced use of force, improved response to behavioral health crises, improved response to investigative stops, new bias-free policing policy and training, and new supervision model. This is directly from the justice.gov. Obviously that has additional details on it, but I did note that that I could not find that any recommendations from the DOJ to end their consent decree noted that a board of this type was necessary, and they still made significant progress. And then I just wanted to note that because I think I think there's many ways in which we can achieve the goals that we all want, which is real community safety. And then my last question for you is on membership. Actually, the Boulder, Colorado, I found an article today that committee since earlier this year has been politically fraught. There has been, it's been sort of riddled with some controversies regarding appointments. And so my question for you was, what have you found that has like measuring any real or perceived bias for membership?
Well, let me say first, the two, the co-chairs of the board, of the panel, they call it a panel, discussed that with us. One of their members made some statements out in the community that were not accepted by the city council. So they pulled her membership on the panel. And they were just as the two co-chairs explained that they were ironing that out, and they were going to have to find another new member.
Thank you.
And their ordinance, provides for how to do that, how to replace a member. I just want to make a comment that we were going to set up a Zoom with Albuquerque, the chief of police, Chief Medina, was going to be on it with us. And they have a liaison, his name is Kelly Manish. And we were going to have that Zoom this week with them for all of you to join in on, but the feds at the last moment notified them that they're coming in this week to come in and see if the Albuquerque Police Department has met up to all the sanctions that were thrown up against them. So anyhow, we're going to have that Zoom yet, so maybe.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure
Dr.
it's accessible to all of you.
Thank you. And
If I may, somebody kindly handed me the answer to your question about Seattle. If I read this correctly, they definitely have police oversight. They have both a community police commission and an office of professional accountability.
Okay, thank you. I think at the core of it, I agree with this advocate group's goals and desires and the concerns. I also every time I read about a citizen oversight committee, I come across controversies that I think distract from the real work ahead, and that's my biggest concern. I hope that you hear me when I say that. And the reason I also wanted to keep my comments short, Mayor, was because I do want someone from the ACLU to come up, and I would hope you give them at least 5 minutes, because I think they have pertinent and critical information on this. I think they have research. I think they have a good framework for how these pieces fit together.
That'll be fine, Councillor. We'll probably just allow a very small amount of public participation, if that's okay. So
I mean, Mayor, we've never timed work sessions, so I just want to note that.
yeah, well, I understand, Councillor, but typically there's 3 items, and they usually last about an hour and 15 minutes each. We usually finish, but I don't expect us to finish at least until 3.
Okay, I
So
would hope
that's-
that you give him 5 minutes. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Thank you.